The atmosphere at the live international press conference was electric. Klaus Zimmermann, correspondent for German DW television, was planning to put Ibrahim Traore in a difficult position with his question. Zimmermann had prepared a trap question, aimed at proving that Traore was a dictator. At this moment, followed live by millions of viewers, no one could foresee that Traore's response would go down in world diplomatic history. This answer would not only respond to a question, but would voice all of Africa to the world. In the large conference hall of the presidential palace in Ouagadougou, more than 150 journalists from world media had gathered. CNN, BBC, France 24, Al Jazeera, Reuters. They were all there. Tension could be felt in the hall. Recent developments in Burkina Faso had attracted intense international media attention. Ibrahim Traore stood calmly at the podium, looking confident, with his military uniform and red beret. However, Klaus Zimmermann, sitting in the back rows of the hall, had different plans in mind. Klaus Zimmermann, 48 years old, was a senior Africa correspondent for DW, one of Germany's largest news channels. He had been covering Africa for 20 years, but constantly produced news showing the continent as problematic. He planned to portray Traore as a young and inexperienced dictator. The first question started routinely. Economic policies from the Reuters correspondent, security situation from BBC, foreign policy from France 24. Traore answered each question calmly and intelligently. However, Zimmermann was waiting for heavier artillery. He looked at his notes. His prepared special question hadn't come yet. "Mr. President," said the CNN correspondent, "what are your plans regarding democratic elections?" Traore smiled. "Democratic processes are our priority. But first we need to stabilize the country. Elections will be held, but at the right time." It was at that moment that Zimmermann stood up. He took the microphone and made sure his voice carried throughout the hall. "Herr Präsident," said Zimmermann, mixing his German with English. "Klaus Zimmermann, Deutsche Welle. I want to ask you a very important question." Traore nodded. "Go ahead." "When we examine your leadership style," Zimmermann began, his voice becoming sharper, "we see the behavioral patterns of typical authoritarian leaders in Africa." The hall fell silent. This was an open provocation. You came to power through a military coup, you silence the opposition, you restrict press freedom, and you constantly postpone elections. Zimmermann paused to let the effect build. Then he played his final card. "Tell us, Herr Traore, how are you different from Mugabe, from Gaddafi? Aren't you also a dictator trying to maintain your power by keeping your people under pressure just like them?" The hall was enveloped in icy silence. Journalists held their breath. This was one of the most provocative questions that could be asked on live television. Zimmermann was confident. Traore would now either get angry and lash out, which would strengthen the dictator image, or go on the defensive and appear weak. However, neither would happen. Traore looked at Zimmermann for a long time. There was neither anger nor worry on his face, just a smile. "Herr Zimmermann," said Traore, his voice calm but each word clear. "Before asking this question, what research did you do?" Zimmermann was surprised. "Research?" "Yes." "How long did you research about Burkina Faso? How many times have you visited our country? How many Burkinabe did you talk to?" Zimmermann began to stammer. I have been covering Africa for years." "How many times?" Traore pressed. "Tell me the number." This is not important. Answer my question." Traore smiled. "Not important? You compare me to Mugabe and Gaddafi, but you've never visited my country. Isn't that strange?" The journalists in the hall began to murmur. Zimmermann was uncomfortable. "I am a professional journalist. I have sources." "What sources?" asked Traore. "Do you understand Africa from your offices in Western capitals?" Zimmermann was starting to blush. "You're trying to deflect this question. Answer my dictatorship accusations." It was at that moment that the expression on Traore's face changed. The smile disappeared, replaced by determined seriousness. "Dictatorship?" said Traore, raising his voice. "Herr Zimmermann, Let me tell you a story. The hall fell completely silent. 3 weeks ago, a 12-year-old girl from Dori village wrote me a letter. Her name was Fatima. In her letter, she wrote that there was no school in their village, and the nearest school was 50 kilometers away. Traore paused, looking at everyone in the hall. Do you know what I did? Did I act like a dictator? Did I send my armies? Zimmermann couldn't answer. No. I went to that village. I talked to Fatima. I met her family. And that week school construction began in their village. A light applause rose from the hall. Last month, a young farmer named Ahmed approached me in Kudugu. He said they were experiencing water shortages. What did I do? Did I act like a dictator? Traore's voice was growing stronger. No. I had a well drilled in that region. Now 5,000 people have access to clean water. This time the applause was stronger. Let me tell you another story, Traore continued. Last night at 11 p.m. the phone rang. A woman giving birth at the hospital in Uwahiguya was experiencing complications. A helicopter request had come. Zimmermann was now completely silent. What did I do? Did I say I'm a dictator, I don't serve the people? No. I immediately sent the helicopter. That woman and her baby are now healthy. This time the hall began to applaud, standing up. Herr Zimmermann, said Traore, turning directly to him. Let me tell you my difference from Mugabe and Gaddafi. They would sit in their palaces, living far from their people. I am among my people. Traore took out his phone from his pocket. On this phone, I have messages from 73 Burkinabe citizens in the last 24 hours, directly to me. They tell me their problems, they want solutions. I read them all, I respond to most of them. Surprised voices rose from the hall. Have you ever seen a country leader who responds to citizens' WhatsApp messages? Zimmermann was now completely bewildered. But the real difference is this, Traore continued, his voice now filling the entire hall. Mugabe and Gaddafi came to power with the support of Western media. Western countries supported them for years, until they went against their interests. This had a bombshell effect. Journalists looked at each other in astonishment. I have no support from the West, because I put my country first. This bothers you because you can't control me. Traore stopped and looked at the hall. Let me tell you another difference. Mugabe and Gaddafi kept their money in European banks. Do you know where my money is? Everyone was waiting curiously. In Burkina Faso's education system, in the health system, in infrastructure projects, every penny is spent here for my people. This time the applause lasted for minutes. Herr Zimmermann, Traore said finally, before making such accusations next time, please do research. Come to my country, talk to my people, see the facts. Zimmermann was completely cornered. I was just... You're just, Traore interrupted, has been misrepresenting Africa for 20 years. We are always presented as failed states, dictators, conflict zones. But you never show our successes. Traore took out another paper from his pocket. Do you know what has changed in Burkina Faso in the last 2 years? 500 new schools, 200 health centers, 1,000 kilometers of new roads, 40% reduction in child mortality. Sounds of amazement rose from the hall. Have you ever written about these? Have we ever heard these figures on DW? Zimmermann couldn't answer. This is the difference between us and dictators. Dictators suppress the people's voice. I voice my people's voice to the world. Traore played his final card. And now, live on air, I address the whole world. Every Western journalist is invited to Burkina Faso. Come, see, write the truth. We have nothing to fear. But, he added smiling, when you come, please leave your prejudices at home. As the hall applauded standing up, millions of viewers were witnessing Traore's unforgettable lesson on television. Zimmermann put down the microphone and sat down. He was completely humiliated. When the press conference ended, social media was going crazy. The hashtag #Traore of Zimmermann had become a worldwide trending topic. African leader silences German journalist. History lesson to Zimmermann. Traore goes down in world diplomatic history. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Traore's answers were being shared everywhere. Klaus Zimmermann, when he returned to the DW office in Berlin, was met with the reception his editor was waiting for. "Klaus, what happened there? The whole world is making fun of you." Zimmermann shook his head. "I was caught unprepared. That man, he's different." "Different? How different?" "He's not like other African leaders. He really communicates with his people. He really gets things done." His editor was surprised. Are you defending him?" "No, I'm just telling the truth." That night, Zimmermann began researching what Traore had said in his hotel room. Developments in Burkina Faso, statistics, projects. Every piece of information he found confirmed Traore. 100 new schools, true. 200 health centers, true. Reduction in child mortality, true. For the first time in his career, Zimmermann began to question himself. Had he been misrepresenting Africa for 20 years? When morning came, he had made his decision. He called his editor. "Hans, I'm staying in Burkina Faso. I'm going to make a real documentary." "What documentary?" "Traore's real story. We've been telling Africa wrong for 20 years. This time I'll write the truth." 2 weeks later, Klaus Zimmermann was traveling around the villages of Burkina Faso. Everywhere he went, he saw the projects Traore had mentioned. New schools, health centers, wells. In Dori village he met Fatima. The 12-year-old girl was now studying at the new school in her village, dreaming of becoming a doctor. "President Traore read my letter," said Fatima, her eyes shining. "A week later he had a school built here. He's a real leader." As Zimmermann took notes of Fatima's words, he realized how unfair his question had been. In Koudougou, he talked to Ahmed. The young farmer was now having successful harvests thanks to the wells Traore had built. "He's not a dictator," said Ahmed. "He's our brother. He listened to our problem and solved it." Each interview changed Zimmermann's perspective. 3 weeks later, Zimmermann returned to Germany. With the material he had gathered, he prepared a comprehensive documentary, Burkina Faso, The Reality. Western media missed. When the documentary was broadcast, it created a shock effect in Europe. People were seeing real Africa for the first time. Successful projects, developing cities, happy people. At the end of the documentary, Zimmermann said, "I misrepresented Africa for 20 years. I only showed wars, poverty, dictators. But real Africa is not this. Leaders like Traore are changing their continents. We Westerners must abandon our prejudices and see the facts." A year later, Klaus Zimmermann returned to Burkina Faso, this time not as a tourist but as a volunteer. He was teaching German at the school in Dori village. Fatima now spoke both French and German. "Herr Klaus," she said one day, "you have changed. When you first came, you asked the president bad questions. Now you live with us." Zimmermann smiled. "Yes, Fatima, I changed, because I learned the truth." "Is President Traore angry with you?" "No," said Zimmermann. "He forgave me. He even said, 'Everyone has the right to learn.'" The incident that took place at the press conference that day became known as the Ouagadougou moment in world diplomatic history. Traore's response became a symbol of African leaders' stance against Western media. But the real change occurred in journalists like Zimmermann. From that day on, they began to view African news with different eyes. And it all started with a tricky question and ended with a historic answer. Sometimes the most difficult questions turn into the most beautiful opportunities. Traore had made the best use of that opportunity.